Hello, welcome to my channel. I've updated my timeline and I've added some more information. And I started with August 9th here, but then I have June and March here. I don't know why I did that. But on her Facebook, she posts like information about one Facebook. She says she works at Hollister Company, went to New Hampstead High School, lives in Waynesboro, Georgia, from Savannah, Georgia. Another Facebook, she says she works at All American Liquor, studied at Point University, lives in Dunn, North Carolina, from Jacksonville, Florida. Another one, she says she works as a stay-at-home mom. She lives in Waynesboro, Georgia. One of them, she states that she's a mom to Zane, and it's got his birthday, but it says he was born in January 2019. I left the date out. You can't find it online though, and I'm surprised that her Facebooks and her social medias are also active. And little Bubba Moss, Quinton Simon, he was born in January of 2021, so that you can get sort of what his age is for the 20 months. Zane is mentioned in an interview as being the son of Cody Wharton, and who wants his son and is concerned. And I want to do a blanket statement over this and say that it's all allegedly. It's all allegedly, every bit of it, because, you know, this is just information I found online. It's hearsay, some of it, and I might give out my speculations, which are just speculations and opinions, but it's all allegedly, every bit of it. That way I don't have to remember to say allegedly this and allegedly that throughout the whole thing. March 22nd, one of the Facebook posts does say anyone having little girl's clothes, so she's talking about that she's pregnant with Sky and that she's going to have a baby, and the baby's due June 29th. But before June 6th, the baby's born, because she posts photos of the new baby, and she posts the baby's birth date and the weight and everything about the baby. And the baby only weighed 5.15 ounces, and she says, "You're so beautiful and so loved, baby girl. Can't believe you're finally here. Born at 36 weeks. Talk about making entrance." Anyway, June 28th, just had a girl, and this is on Twitter from Daniel Youngkin. Like I said, they have various social media pages. September 7th, the police respond to the domestic dispute, and like I said, allegedly, between Quinton's 22-year-old mother and grandmother, Billie Jo Howell. I'm not sure who called the police. September 8th, Billie Jo Howell files an eviction notice against her daughter, Leilani, and boyfriend, fiancé Daniel Youngkin. So you got to realize that's really a stressed out time then for all of them. September 28th, and like I said, allegedly, because I don't see how she had custody before of the children. But it says that Leilani lost custody of Quinton and his older brother. Family court ordered her to pay $150 a month starting November 1st. So I don't know if she had custody before that, because I think the babysitter was watching the children before that, and I don't think she had custody of the children before that. So I don't know. So that's allegedly. I found this online. So babysitter states that she had the children Monday through Friday, 5:30 to 6 a.m. until 3:30 to 6 p.m. sometimes nights. And she said that the schedule was 3:30 that she would have him till, and I think she had him till Danny got off work. So to me, I feel like Danny's dropping the children off before he goes to work. He's picking them up after he gets home from work. And sometimes if he has to work later hours, then he picks them up then. So then I wonder if Billie Jo and Danny don't have some kind of an agreement where Danny's helping out with the children and mostly watching the children instead of Leilani, because of Leilani losing custody. And if that's not why Billie Jo's leaving the children there. So I'm confused by this. So let me know what your thoughts are and what you think, because I'm a bit confused, because it's right there. But I don't know. So, October 4th, Tuesday, 5:30 to 6 p.m., the children went home from the babysitters. And somewhere else it says 4:30 to 5 p.m., but I thought it was 5:30 to 6 p.m., so I'm wondering if that's not a typo in the other place. And you have to forgive me. Yes, I do have typos, because I'm just typing this in and I've got it here. So October 5th, Wednesday, there's a Twitter from Chatham County PD that you can find online. You can find their Twitter and you can see. And I just put that here because there's a lot of different Twitter things on October 5th. Anyway, 5:29 a.m., the sitter got a text saying the kids are not coming. Leilani is with them. But the sitter gets up at 5 o'clock, and she always has a Monday through Friday, whether Leilani works or not, she states. And did the boyfriend ever leave for work? These are my questions when I'm speculating. Did the boyfriend ever leave for work? Did he come back home? Reports state the boyfriend as being last person to see Quinton at 6 a.m. And I feel like, was it 6 a.m. or 6 p.m. or why did she say 6 a.m.? Because I feel like the children came home in the evening, Tuesday, the day before, 5:30, 6 p.m. It might have been 4:30 or 5 because I put that somewhere else. But I feel like what happened when the children got home, from the babysitters? Where were the adults in the house? Where were the children? Did something happen at that time, where's Leilani? Where's Danny? Where's the children? What happened? Did something happen at 6 p.m. or around 6 p.m. or sometime around that time frame? Maybe the adults were somewhere and the children were somewhere else, and maybe that's when something happened. And I'm wondering, did one of the adults find them and not tell the other adult, or did both adults know at that point? What happened at that time? This is what I'm wondering. I'm wondering if something didn't happen that evening. Did somebody fall asleep? Were they both asleep? Were they just in a different area of the house? I don't know. There's been speculation on the internet where one person thought maybe something happened to him in the pool, and they thought the older brother opened the door. Somebody else thought maybe something happened to them in the bathtub. Even a child could even choke, right? If there's nobody around. But, I'm wondering if something didn't happen at the point when they came home from the sitters. Because I find it, I just have questions about them sending a text saying the kids aren't coming at 5:29 when they normally come. It's off. It doesn't seem right to me. And I'm wondering, I feel like the babysitter might feel like it's off. I don't know how much it's off, but I feel like maybe the babysitter feels it's off. And what do you think? This is what I'm wondering. What do you think? So the sitter's husband goes to work at 7:30. And her son lives right down the road, and she says he goes to work at 8. And we'll get further into that. And then there's a news release from the Chatham County, and you can read that. I don't want to read everything on the page, but about the missing toddler, and he's wearing a Sesame Street shirt and black pants. Was it black pants or brown pants? I thought it was brown. I don't know. Anyway. The sitter and the children are outside, and they don't see Quinton anywhere. The sitter takes her children from 7:30 to 8:30. The sitter and her children are outside around that time, and they don't see Quinton anywhere. So I feel like maybe she's got a bad feeling, and maybe they're actually watching for him and his brother to make sure they're okay, and they're concerned because they're outside and they don't see him anywhere for an hour. So then 8:30, the sitter takes her children to McDonald's because, they want a McDonald's. She said it was literally right down the street. So Wednesday around 9 a.m., the sitter states she got a text asking, "Have you seen Quinton?" And the sitter is concerned. She calls right back. Her and her daughter go to Leilani's. They offer to help look for Quinton. Sitter describes the boyfriend as, "He looked at me with the most coldest look I've ever seen and said, 'We've already looked.'" So right there, the sitter's upset because he looked at her with the coldest look she's ever seen. And he said, "We've already looked." So they have no interest in looking for the child. They really don't feel like there's any reason to look for the child. So Wednesday time estimated by the sitter, she thought it was around 9:35 or 9:40. I think it says 9 o'clock somewhere else. She called the police only after the sitter asked her if she had. So there's a news release that stated the police would not release the actual 911 call, and they have the radio dispatch information online. So I typed that in, and then the sitter says she's stuck there for a minute as police have to check everything. They're looking for the child. The sitter goes home. I don't know if she calls Billie Jo then, or if after she goes back and gets Zane. The sitter goes home. She returns to Leilani's, offers to take Zane home, which she does, and maybe that's when she calls Billie Jo, and Billie Jo's not even aware that the child is missing. Ground air search begins, and the FBI begins assisting. Within 3 hours, the FBI is on the scene. They've already called and asked for assistance. October 6th, the grandmother is crying, saying, "I don't know if I can trust her, if I don't," and other information during interviews. And there's other interviews. There's more that you can find online. There's more, probably, the babysitter did a few videos, and other people recorded them and put them online, so you could probably find those online as well. Today we will be recanvassing some specific areas in our search for Quinton Simon. They say on October 9th. It says they don't need volunteers, and they wanted to keep everybody informed about their efforts to find the little boy. So, and then the next day, October 11th, the police post a tweet on Twitter stating that they've seized evidence. And they did drain the pool, and the home is searched October 10th. So that's the next day after that. So I don't know if that's where they got the evidence, or if they got the evidence from the house, or if they got evidence from the phones. Anyway, so they're moving forward, and they want to analyze the evidence, and they're letting everybody know they're going to continue to pursue all avenues to bring Quinton home, and it really looks like they did. And people in the neighborhood talk about, well, one of them talks about how they did a really thorough search. October 11th or 12th, Billie Jo Howell burst through, I think it was 11th, the babysitter's back door, but it could have been the 12th, accusing her of having a memorial service for Quinton, screaming things like, "This is my baby, not yours. That's my baby. You're awful to say you're going to have a memorial. My baby's not dead." So Billie Joel's, upset, obviously, stressed out, and to the max. So she just fires through the babysitter's house. And the babysitter said she never said she was going to do that. She was just having a candlelight service. But then the very next day, the police announced Quinton is likely dead. They named the mother, Leilani, as the prime suspect in a tweet. And they say, "We're saddened to report that they have notified Quinton Simon's family that they believe he's deceased, and they have named the mother, Leilani Simon, as the prime suspect in his disappearance and death, but no arrests were made at that time." October 12th, there's a document stamped. And you can pause this and read this document. And it talks about them going into the house and removing the children, Zane Wharton, and Sky Youngkin, from the home. So, and putting them in foster care because the children were in imminent danger of abuse or neglect if they remained in the home. And it talks about safeguarding the children's welfare. And it talks about a voluntary kinship, and you can read this. And it states here, talks about Quinton going missing. The children and sibling were in a home with the mother, the Youngkin father, and the maternal grandmother prior to the sibling's disappearance. The mother is the primary subject of the death investigation, and the other household members, as well as relatives, continue to be investigated for protective capacity. The mother is a chronic, unrehabilitated substance abuser of cocaine and cannabis. She screened positive for, and I have a typo here, and admitted to use of cocaine, that's my typo, and THS at the birth of the child Sky. She has continued to screen positive for cocaine. The mother has been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and anxiety disorder, and she's being evicted. It doesn't say that, but, that's the other thing. Is she being evicted? I think it said that she was, so unless the grandmother changed her mind. Anxiety disorder for which she has not been receiving ongoing mental health treatment. The maternal grandmother has a permanent guardianship order for Zane. You can, like I said, you can pause this and read it. The maternal grandmother failed to provide adequate supervision for the child by leaving the child, Zane, in the care of the mother. A person the maternal grandmother knew or should have known was unfit to provide proper care. While the maternal grandmother traveled out of state, the Children's Services made reasonable efforts to prevent the removal of the children from the home. and to make possibly the children to return home, including consulting with law enforcement, utilizing a voluntary kinship agreement, and during the missing children investigation, attempted to verify the maternal grandmother's claim to permanent guardianship of the child Zane and the sibling Quinton, confirming with the Cherokee Nation the children do not qualify as Indian children pursuant to the Indian Child Welfare Act. Reviewing Child Protective Services history from other counties, as well as an ongoing Family Preservation Services case, previously providing the mother with substance abuse rehabilitation treatment following a utero drug exposure of the child Zane. Providing an updated substance abuse assessment and rehabilitation treatment following the utero drug exposure of the child Sky. And requesting drug screening of the mother. So they removed the children from the home at that time. So that if you're, and you can pause that and read it so you can see that. October 18th, their searching the landfill begins. The police believe Quinton was placed in a dumpster that was then taken to the landfill. Hours later, the mother and grandfather are at a bar, Stingray Seafood, with a few other people running up a tab over $300. And you can find that online as well. Okay, now the father of Quinton that doesn't live in the home. Now, his name, as far as I know, is allegedly Henry Dale Moss Jr., Bubba Moss. His mother died October 23rd. She was only 43. And then they'll have her funeral, and his father will die as well. So while they're searching this landfill for his child, his baby, his mother dies, and she's only 43 years old. Okay? October 26th, 3 days later, there's on Twitter, the police are on there, they're talking about it's the most massive undertaking ever for their department. And that's really going to extreme searching a landfill for the body, because how often do people go missing and you think, oh, they probably are in the landfill, but they're actually searching for them. So October 29th, there's the funeral services for Brandy Lynn Heron, Bubba Moss's mother, who died. November 2nd, Bubba Moss's father, Henry Dale Moss Jr., his dad, Quinton's grandfather on that side, is hit while walking. That's Quinton's grandparents. They both die. They believe he got a flat tire and was walking home, and he was struck and killed by a hit and run. It's just horrific to me that this young man is going through all of this. So then November 2nd, there's also there's a Twitter from the Chatham County Police. You can find a tweet about them searching the landfill. November 8th, Henry Dale Moss Sr., Bubba Moss's father, they have the funeral. November 18th, 10 days later, they believe they have found Quinton's remains in the landfill. November 18th, the babysitter holds a candlelight vigil for Quinton Simon. November 21st, Chatham County Police Department detectives arrested 22-year-old Leilani Simon and charged her with malice murder, concealing the death of another person, false reporting, and making false statements in connection with the disappearance and death of her son, 20-month-old Quinton Simon. Now, what do you think of that? Do you think that they should have arrested the grandmother for leaving the child in her care? Do you think they should have arrested the boyfriend? Do you think the boyfriend came home with the children, knew Leilani was not coherent enough to be watching the children, and do you think after he worked all day he fell asleep, or he went in another room and left the children alone and something happened? Do you think they should charge him as well? Or, do you think Leilani Simon being charged is enough? I mean, the grandmother had custody, right? So how do you feel? Do you feel like the grandmother should be charged as well? And the babysitter. Do you feel like the babysitter should be charged, or do you think she did everything that she could, trying to contact the guardian and trying to get her to do something? What are your thoughts on that? All right, so then November 22nd, they have a news release. You can go there to find that. November 23rd, they have a preliminary hearing for Leilani Simon. It's scheduled January 11th, 2023, and you can read more on that. And that way they'll have a chance to share some facts at that time if it's not delayed or the date's not changed. November 28th, the police department retweeted an FBI, and that was yesterday, the DNA analysis of the bones found in the Superior landfill are those of the missing 20-month-old Quinton Simon. How horrific for those people that were combing through that, looking for his remains for this child. And all of the investigators, even the chief of police in one of the interviews, you could see him look like he was going to break out crying at any moment. And then towards the end, you could actually see that he actually broke into tears. So, and then there's an interview with Shay Schrader from WTOC. It spoke to Leilani Simon and Billie Jo Howell in an interview almost 3 weeks after Quinton Simon went missing. And you can find that online. And I tried to type in what they said. But like I said, you can find that online. And I just wanted to have this information here for you as well. Quinton Simon's babysitter, Diana Michelle McCarter, comments. She says, "Good evening to everyone. I came a little bit early so that people can come in on, and I'm not going to read all of this, but she's talking about how she's not an attention seeker. She just wants to set the record straight. So you can read this. And it's pretty interesting. And people are wondering what could have happened, what could have happened. So this gives us a sense of what was going on and what could have happened. She talks about keeping Quinton, how she met Billie Jo and Leilani was through another lady. She didn't even know when she started babysitting. She doesn't say when she started babysitting him, though. Not here, I don't see it. So anyway, she talks about how she voiced all of her questions and concerns. She said she didn't call defects, but in another place, I think there's another interview where she does say that she did call defects at one point, so I don't know. And it talks about Billie Jo worked out of town, and she would let her know what was going on, and she would say she's going to talk to Leilani. There was one particular morning they were outside in a ditch. Her daughter seen them and came running in, and her daughter went down there, and Leilani was nowhere in sight, so she called Billie Jo, I don't know, Billie Jo Howell, and I don't know if they took him home at that point or they just called Leilani. She talks about how they would drop him off in the diapers, they would drop them off in the pull-ups, and when the baby came, Sky wouldn't send no milk. When Sky, the baby, and I misspelled it, it's supposed to end with an E, they wouldn't send no milk. 2 days I had to call Danny because Leilani wouldn't answer me, which is her fiance, to bring me milk for Sky, and I got it misspelled there. She kept texting Billie Jo Howell. She took her daughter, took pictures, and sent them to Billie Jo of Quinton having bruises. And she says that everything she said could be backed up. And you can find the video in this on the internet with her talking and go through it. But that way you have I have typos. But I tried to type it in as best I could. So there was a time that she was going to be keeping them at nights but Billie Jo decided that she decided that she didn't want Leilani keeping him when she found out everything that was going on, and she decided she wanted the babysitter to keep him all the time. But then she changed her mind and decided she would give Leilani a chance. And I don't know if this was before or after she was evicted of. And like I said, I don't know if she had any kind of agreement with Danny or what was going on, because it seems like they were only there when Danny was there. And the babysitter said even if Leilani didn't have to work, she kept them Monday through Friday at those times. And it seems like Danny was gone. So I don't know. I feel like there's so much more going on that we still don't have information about. So She said they dropped him off between 5:30 and 6, and they picked him up. Was supposed to, their schedule was 3:30, but sometimes they worked over. What they, her boyfriend would text me and say he needed to work a couple extra hours and make up hours. So then he would pick him up about 6. And she would do that. She would feed him. She took him places. She loved him. They're kids. Who's not going to love him, she says. Who's not going to love a kid. So then she says, and I underlined some of it, right? Because I question, when did the babysitter know in her mind, whether it was her subconscious or what, that they were gone, that Quinton was gone? So anyway, she keeps him sometimes at night. At 5:29, they sent her a text. No, she's sorry. Tuesday afternoon, they went home. 4:30 to 5, but I thought it was 5:30 to 6, so I don't know. Anyway, I feel like, do you wonder, did something happen shortly after they went home from the babysitters? Where were the adults? Where were the children? Is that when something happened? She got up in the morning at 5 on Wednesday because they usually got there around 5:36. She got a text at 5:29 saying from Danny, the kids are not coming. So right then and there, I would imagine, speculating, do you think she felt uneasy, like something was wrong? And he said in the text Leilani was with him. She put okay. She said, was it a little unusual? Yes, because if me and the kids, wait a minute, because even if she was off, I had him, she said. She didn't know that we could see her. They would sit on the front porch. But if me and the kids, and my kids too, but mine are basically grown, would go out to leave, she'd be on the front porch smoking, but she would duck and run inside so we wouldn't see her. But I have no problem keeping them. Keeping the baby, she said. Was it for money? No. She said she didn't charge them much, just 15 apiece for the 2 boys, 30 a day, and she didn't even charge them for the baby. So, and so she didn't hear anything else from him. She got up. Her husband went to work around 7:30, and then her and her children, they're outside. So her son lives right down the road, and he goes to work around 8:30. But from 7:30 until 8:30, her and her daughters were outside. They didn't see Quinton nowhere, she said. So does that mean they're outside watching, worried, concerned, looking for Quinton, insane and worried? So is that, does that show that she's already worried about the children? Because she gets that tickets at 5:29, and then they go outside watching for the children. And to me, that makes me feel like she's already concerned since she got that text at 5:29. She feels like, but that's just my thoughts, my speculation. What do you think? So then she takes her daughters to McDonald's. It's literally just right down the road, she says. And you can pause this and read it. I'm just skimming through it. And so then she gets a text from Danny saying, have you seen Quinton? And at this point, Danny should have been at work, right? Did Danny ever leave for work? Did he come back? Because he's back, right? Anyway, I believe they both should have been at work, right? Both Leilani and Danny. Did Leilani work at that time? I don't know what hours Leilani worked, or if she was working. So her and her oldest daughter, they go over there, and they offer to help look for little Quinton. She's saying maybe he could be here, maybe he could be there. Why don't we help you look, right? He could be in the cabinet, maybe he's playing hide and seek, she said. She said, me and my daughter, we'll help you look. She said they didn't want that, and I underline that too. They didn't want them to help look for baby Quinton. She said, Danny stood there and he looked at me, her, the babysitter, with the most coldest look I've ever seen and said, we've already looked. So here he looks at her with the coldest look she's ever seen. And they have no interest in looking for baby Quinton. So does the babysitter know at this point in her subconscious, or does she realize that he's probably dead? Because they're not going to look for him. So she stands there for a minute. She's probably coming unhinged from the inside, you know? And she looks, and what are your thoughts? How do you feel? What do you think? What do you think she's going through? What do you think her thoughts are when he's looking at her with the most coldest look she's ever seen and said, "We've already looked"? How do you think she feels? Leilani's smoking a cigarette and Danny's standing there, and she goes to get in her car, and she was going to call Billie Jo, and she did, but I'm not sure when she did. But she said Leilani didn't call them. Leilani didn't call the police until the babysitter said, "Have you called the police?" And then she calls the police. She said she started to leave. The cops came in behind her. She couldn't leave. I guess they said what was on the property, they had to stay there until after they checked everything. So she comes back 30 minutes later. She offers to take Zane home because they had a lot going on. I don't know about the baby's sky or where he was, if she took the baby too or if the baby stayed there. And they got her shoes for Zane, and she calls him the baby. So I don't know if she's referring to the actual baby, Sky or Zane. So then she called Billie Jo, and Billie Jo had no idea. And she's trying to set the record straight, you know, and she talks about her and Billie Jo having conversations and what they talked about and what she was planning on doing. And then she talks about Danny because he would actually ask her the last few weeks, "Miss Michelle, do the kids have everything they need? Do they have pull-ups?" So I'm wondering, because I'm questioning, and I'm wondering if you are too, because the children leave when Danny leaves. The children come home when Danny comes home. Regardless of whether Leilani is there, they come home when Danny comes home. Danny seems to be in charge of making sure Michelle has everything the babysitter has everything that she needs. That's her middle name, so I think that's what they refer to her as. So I'm wondering how much Danny's actively involved in the care of the children. Because Leilani wasn't. So I wonder if he has any kind of agreement with Billie Jo or what's going on. I feel like we're missing him. And I don't know, maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's just trying to take an active role. And he's trying to step up and be a dad to these children. So what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts? Do you feel like he's made an agreement with Billie Jo that he's watching them because of Leilani not being, you know, not supposed to be watching them? Or do you feel like he's just trying to step up and be a dad? Okay, so what are your thoughts? So anyway, we go on, we read this, and it talks about Billie Jo barging in her house. Her daughter was recording. She tried to take the phone away from her daughter. So Billie Jo Howell, she obviously, you know, she's becoming unhinged. She's upset. She's realizing that, you know, her daughter and her boyfriend didn't want to go look for the child. They didn't have any interest in looking for the child. She has to know that there's a reason for that. She's somewhere. She's probably begging that he's alive and well and wanting to believe her daughter and wanting to trust her, but she's probably upset at the whole situation, upset with herself for leaving the children with him, upset that the child's gone. It probably has nothing to do with the babysitter that she became unhinged and yelled at the babysitter. She probably just needed to vet. She said that she accused her of stealing her grandbaby, which really upset the babysitter, and the babysitter talks about that, and you can pause this and read it. So she just starts going, you know, the whole thing. And the babysitter says it was a lot, and she talks about it. And like I said, you can pause this and read it. I typed it in as best I could. There's going to be typos. She said, So somebody keeps asking her if she thinks Leilani done it. She said, I'm going to tell you this, that a mother who lets her kids outside that doesn't watch them, that numerous people have seen that they're bruised, they're dirty, and there's plenty of evidence. You tell me what you think. She said, I told Billie Jo my concerns. I sent her stuff, and she didn't listen to me, so she can't blame anybody but herself for what has happened. Nobody, and I see a lot of people commenting, but I can't do that. I can't answer all these questions. Trying to tell. She's trying to get the record straight, and she can't. She wants to get her thoughts out, instead of trying to answer the questions because she hasn't got her thoughts out. So she said and there's another typo. She said she's just a babysitter, but she's watching out for the kids more than her mother ever did, she said. So the truth. But her mother's addicted to drugs. Her mother, it said she had 2 different types of things. One of them, I can't remember what they were. I think one was bipolar and the other one was some kind of an anxiety disorder. So, talks about the FBI having the phones with the texts and the messages. So she talks about little Quinton coming over the other day with belt bruises on his arm and on his neck. She texted Billie Jo. She never got a text back. So there's more information here that you can pause and read. I didn't have it all typed in the other day, but I did add more, and I underlined things because I'm questioning, when do you think the babysitter knew? Do you think the babysitter knew? When do you think the babysitter knew? Somewhere inside that, something had happened to Quinton. She got that text at 5:29 Wednesday morning saying from Danny that they was not coming. Leilani was with them. Do you think she knew then? And then she goes over there and she says they didn't even end up calling the police till after she got there. So she feels like at that point, do you think she knows? Or when Danny gave her that coldest look she'd ever seen, do you think that was it? So then let's look at this. And some of this was in the timeline before, but I want to point this out. She's talking about Quinton in past tense, and I wonder when in all the interviews, if we go through it, when did she start talking about him in past tense? She would say he would just smile ear to ear. I called him monkey. The girls called him monkey. This is not in present tense. Even though she says they're keeping up the faith, she knows. She's talking, this is my opinion. This is just speculation. Like I said, blanket statement, allegedly. He smiled. She talks about that in past tense with his eyes. She's remembering him through her grief. And I think she's been grieving for some time. Even though she's not his mother, she loved these children. So she's talking about him in past tense. And I wonder, what are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on her speaking about him in the past tense? When do you think she actually knew? So, and she talks about she just thinks Billie Jo should have done more because she kept telling her and she kept telling her and she kept telling her, and she felt like she should have done something. So then October 13th, there's a live update, a press conference, and I typed all that in. I don't know if I don't have all the press conferences typed in, but I have some of them. So, and this one it says that October 13th, they have the live update. Heartbreaking conclusion that 20-month-old Quinton Simon is deceased. We have not made an arrest yet. It says, as you know, our investigation led us to the heartbreaking conclusion that 20-month-old Quinton Simon is deceased and that they have named his mother as a primary suspect. And they haven't made any arrests. And do you think his mother did something while she was angry because she has a bipolar disorder? Or do you think something happened, that they were unaware of? And do you think she should have been, the only one who was arrested? So you can pause this and read it. Like I said, I tried to type it. There will be some typos. I did run it through for the I did run it through to look for typos, but apparently I missed them. So, and then there's October 18th, there's a press conference. They speak about having evidence and reason to search the landfill. November 21st, there's a live news statement, and I typed that in. And I don't think I have all of them in, but I went through and tried to type in what they were saying, because I figure somebody might be watching this years later and they might need the information. Maybe someone's writing an essay. Maybe someone's studying juvenile crime and punishment. Maybe they're writing an essay. Talks about the FBI being there within 3 hours of in search of the landfill. And to me, all of the investigators and the FBI and everyone went above and beyond in this investigation, because they actually went to the landfill, went through the landfill piece by piece in areas to find this child. And how horrific. And I imagine that the investigators are having nightmares. You know, we look at this and we see this on the internet. We see this baby's face is missing and we're upset. Can you imagine being the investigators and all that they're having to go through? That's got to be horrific, right? So, and then there's the U.S. Sun at some point. The babysitter, this Diana McCarter, I think her middle name's Michelle, and she goes by that. But she said her 16-year-old daughter was shocked to discover Quinton and his toddler brother alone in the pool earlier this summer while their mom slept. Was she babysitting at that time? Because she didn't know them before she started babysitting, so she must have been babysitting at the time. And so now she's concerned that something happened, because she said something about Zane being able to open the door right there and they can get out. So I wonder, you know, the children went home the evening before. Where were the adults? Where were the children? Did something happen at that time? You know, did they fall asleep? He worked all those hours. Maybe he fell asleep. Where was Leilani? Was she asleep? You know, she wasn't. It mentions and states somewhere in the document that she wasn't fit to be watching them. So, and the babysitter talks about when they came over. Every time they come over here, we bathe them. They were dirty, the babysitter said. We fed them food because they were always hungry. Definitely there was neglect there, she said, in this interview. So, and the U.S. Sun describes her as being a chronic, unrehabilitated substance abuser of cocaine and cannabis. So, and then after they started searching, they concluded the first day of the search for Quinton's body. Leilani was flirting with the staff, and her mother were out drinking. So, and that's the end of that, the timeline that I have. And I wanted to go over that. I wanted to share that with you, and I wanted to, you know, I updated it some, and I thought, well, years later, I might want to look back at this and see what I updated, and also I might want to share this with you because you might be interested in this as well. And I wanted to see what your opinions were on some of the things that happened here, you know. You know, like, when do you think the babysitter realized that, you know, she gets the text at 5:29 saying they're not coming. And all of a sudden, you know, they're out there. Did they go out there every morning? I don't think so. But they're out there for an hour watching for those children, concerned for these children. I'm speculating that, but that's my thoughts. Oh, she doesn't have them. She's not going to have them. She's worried about these children. Okay? But she doesn't see them. And she talks about that. And then she talks about them in past tense. So, right here, he looked at me with the most coldest look I've ever seen and said, "We've already looked." So when did she know? Do you think it was when she got the text, or when he looked at her and they had no interest in looking for them? They weren't really interested in calling the police the way she talks, if that's true. You know, it's all hearsay and allegedly, because this is the information that I got off the internet. And then, where's that document? There's that document that says that the maternal grandmother knew, or should have known, that the mother was unfit. A person the maternal grandmother knew or should have known was unfit to provide proper care. That the grandmother left her in the care with Zane, and then it describes in here why she was unfit. It talks about previously providing the mother with substance abuse, rehabilitation, treatment following the utero drug exposure of the child Zane, providing an upstate substance abuse assessment, rehabilitation, treatment following the utero drug exposure to the child Sky, requesting drug screening. So let's see. Talks about imminent danger of neglect and abuse. Talks about Quinton. The mother, it says here, the mother is a chronic, unrehabilitated substance abuser of cocaine and cannabis. She screened positive for an admitted use of cocaine and THC at the birth of the child Sky. She has continued to screen positive for cocaine. The mother has been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and anxiety disorder, which she has not been getting treatment, it says. So, and you can see that if she was being evicted, which I don't know if she was being evicted or if the grandmother changed her mind, there's a lot of stress. There's a lot of stress, and she has anxiety. So do you think something happened because of that? Do you think something happened when Danny took them home? And shortly after he took them home, do you think something happened with the children? I mean, do you think they were in another room and the children were in another room and got out? Or, what do you think happened? What do you think happened? We won't know. We may never know, but we might know. At the preliminary hearing, maybe they'll have more information. Maybe we'll know. But until then, here's some of the Chatham County Police Department. They have their Twitter, and and you can find where they post different tweets on their Twitter as things are going through. And I did post that in my original timeline before I updated it, and I had scrolled through. This has already been almost an hour, so I'm not going to do that. Here's one of their news releases. You can find their news releases online as well. And in my timeline, I did show where you could find those. Like I said, you can pause this and you can read these. So to me, they go above and beyond, not only for the search of Quinton, but they're also keeping us updated as well, because they know that the whole world's concerned for this child. You see this child, you look at this adorable little boy who's missing, and you can't help but have your heart break and feel for this poor little boy that's missing. Here, let's look at some photos of him. I'm sure you've seen them, but you just can't help but feel for this poor child. And we'll look at some photos because he's just the most adorable child. And it's horrific that something could happen to him. It is. He's only 20 months old. So there's a photo of the babysitter. There's photos of Quinton. There's photos of his mother. And I believe that one is his brother. I don't think that's Quinton. I think that's his brother, Zane. There's a grandmother with a baby Sky. And I believe that one's Quinton. Don't quote me on this. I could be wrong. So you can see such a cute child, right? Look at this photo. There's his mother and there's him. Such a beautiful baby. And you can't help but have your heart break. I do missing YouTube videos, and I have nightmares about different people. So, and there's the one interview, and she's talking, and her mother will turn her the other way. So, my heart breaks for these people, but this is a child, so your heart breaks even more for a child. And there's the chief, I think his name was Adler. Anyway, I'm not sure of his name, but I thought it was like Jeff Adler, but I could be wrong. But I don't want to go looking for it right now, but the chief, he breaks down. He breaks down and cries. You know, he's only human. And this shows that he's not insensitive, you know, because he has a heart and he can't help but cry. And there's different photos online of this precious baby. And this is an article about Bubba Moss and the dad and his grandmother and his mother, I think. I don't know if that, I'm not sure who the photos are. You could go look at it, but he loses his mother and his dad and his baby all in one sweep, you know, not all at once, but just bam, 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 he loses them. And, you know, what are your thoughts on that? That is horrific. It's such a precious, cute child, right? And there you can see when Billie Jo storms through the door of the babysitter's house and the babysitter's sitting there and she just goes off on the babysitter. And I don't think that had anything to do with the babysitter. We have to understand and realize that sometimes when people do things to us and we feel like they're doing something to us, but it doesn't have anything to do with us. It's what they're going through. Things that have to do with them. Maybe things that they haven't forgiven themselves for. Maybe things that they have done. Maybe things that they are going through. It doesn't have anything to do with us. Just because they're doing something to us, it doesn't have anything to do with us. We're just there, you know. We didn't do it. We don't have control over it. It probably doesn't have anything to do with us most of the time. That's my feelings. That's my speculation. So, anyway, please feel free to leave comments on what your thoughts are. You know, maybe you've seen other interviews with the parents and the child and you have your thoughts. And it's just so upsetting that this happened. You know, we see this precious little boy. It's horrific. It's utterly horrific. I can't even imagine the investigators combing through all that for this little tiny toddler boy. Anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to stop and pray for everyone. I think we should pray for the child, for the mother of the child, for the father of the child, for the boyfriend and the father going through so much in his family, for the grandmother and for the babysitter and for the investigators and for everyone whose lives, you know, that has been scarred by this situation, and for other children that might be going through similar situations where they're being neglected and abused in the world. You know, just stop and pray for everyone. We're not supposed to judge them, but we should, even if you can't help but judge them, we should stop and pray for all of these people, because I know that these people are, you know, they've got to be wanting to go back and do something different. They're wanting to change the thing. They're probably having nightmares and just wanting to go back and do everything differently so that it didn't end up the way that it did. And this will haunt them for the rest of their lives. So they're going to need our prayers anyway. And we've all made mistakes. We've all made mistakes. We all fall short. We all sin. So, you know, we should stop and pray for them. And thank you so much for tuning in. Like I said, please feel free to leave comments and have a great day. Bye-bye.